Imagine restoring your family's vineyard with every penny you have, only for your brother and nephew to forge your signature and demand you sign it away at the wedding altar. But Anja turned their betrayal into epic justice. Hit like if you think family thieves deserve nothing. Wait till you hear how she left them penniless.
Thank you, Eliza, for letting me share this. It's been cathartic to finally speak about how I protected our legacy. Let me tell you exactly how it unfolded that day. The officiant's voice carries across the vineyard as he speaks about family bonds and trust, but all I can focus on are the legal documents clutched in my hands. My nephew Mikkel stands at the altar in his perfectly pressed tuxedo, promising to love and honor his bride, while I sit in the front row calculating exactly how much his father's version of love and honor is going to cost me. As I watch my nephew promise to love and honor his bride, I wonder if he learned the meaning of those words from his father, the same man who taught him that family loyalty is just another commodity to be sold. The white roses I arranged this morning frame the altar beautifully. Every bloom came from bushes I planted with my own hands, just like everything else on this property. The irony isn't lost on me that they're using my flowers, my restored stone terrace, my life's work as the backdrop for what they plan to be my funeral. Dimitri catches my eye from where he stands beside his son and gives me that patronizing smile, the one that says you're beaten and you know it. His silver hair is slicked back, and he's wearing the Armani suit I watched him buy last month with money that should have been going toward the vineyard's operating costs. If only he knew what grandfather Stoyan tucked into his will. 6 hours earlier, I was walking these same stone paths in the dawn light, deadheading the roses that would later frame Mikkel's wedding ceremony. The morning mist clung to the valley, and everything was perfect, absolutely perfect. I remember pausing by the fountain I'd spent 3 months restoring, listening to the water cascade over stones that my great-grandfather had quarried from these very hills. The sound always reminded me of Papa's stories about the family's early days in America, about how the Petrova family had worked this land for generations after immigrating from Europe. Every vine, every stone path, every carefully restored beam of this house represents a piece of my soul, and Papa's dream finally breathing again. I'd walked through the house then, adjusting the white silk ribbons I'd tied around the banister, straightening the antique lace tablecloths that had belonged to my grandmother. In the study, I'd paused by the old iron safe built into the wall, the one that held grandfather Stoyan's original papers, the ones that would prove so important later. The morning light streaming through the restored stained glass windows painted everything in jewel tones. I'd spent $47,000 just on having those windows professionally restored, matching every piece of colored glass to the original 1920s design. Worth every penny to see them glow like that. I was so proud, so completely, foolishly proud of what I'd built here. 4 hours before the ceremony, I was in the bridal suite helping Elena with her final preparations. She looked radiant in her grandmother's pearls, her dark hair swept up in an elegant chignon that showed off the vintage Petrova family earrings I'd lent her. "Anja, I can't believe how beautiful you've made this place," she said, squeezing my hands as I adjusted her veil. "When Mikkel first brought me here 2 years ago, I could see the potential, but this," she gestured toward the window overlooking the restored gardens, "this is pure magic." The wedding guests had been arriving all morning, and I'd received a steady stream of compliments. Mrs. Kovac from the village couldn't stop raving about the restored chapel. The photographer kept exclaiming over the perfect lighting in rooms where I'd spent months selecting the right fixtures. Elena squeezed my hands again, her eyes bright with tears. "Thank you for making this place so magical for us. Mikkel says you're the heart of this family." The heart of the family. I'd held onto those words, let them warm me as I made final adjustments to the flower arrangements. As I checked that the caterers had everything they needed in the kitchen, I'd renovated with period-appropriate fixtures. If I'd known what was waiting for me in the study, I would have savored that moment longer. I would have held onto the feeling of being valued, of being loved, before I learned exactly how much that love was worth to them. 3 hours before the ceremony, I went to the study looking for grandfather Stoyan's vintage pin, the one with the small sapphire that Papa always said brought the family luck. I wanted to wear it during the ceremony, a small tribute to the man whose dream I'd spent 4 years bringing back to life. But when I opened the desk drawer, my fingers found papers instead. Legal documents that definitely hadn't been there yesterday, carelessly left where I couldn't miss them. The words swim before my eyes: property transfer, Petrova Vineyard, $2.8 million, Anja Petrova acting as caretaker only, no legal standing. My hands started shaking as I read further. Purchase agreement. Buyer, Meridian Development Corporation. Seller, Dmitry Petrov, legal heir. Transfer date, today during the wedding reception. The signature at the bottom looked like mine. The same careful script I'd learned in school, the same slight slant to the A in Anja. But I'd never seen this document before in my life. I grabbed my phone and called Radislav, my lawyer, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. While it rang, I scanned every page with my phone's camera and sent them to him. The photos were blurry, my hands wouldn't stop trembling, but clear enough. Radislav, I need you to look at something immediately. I'm sending you documents I just found. Please tell me this isn't what I think it is. While I waited for Radislav to call back, I spread the papers across the desk and forced myself to read every word. The timeline became crystal clear, each detail a small knife twist. They'd been planning this for months. The encouragement to really make the place shine for Mikhail's wedding, Dmitry's sudden interest in the renovation progress, the way they'd both insisted I spare no expense. It's a once-in-a-lifetime celebration, Anja. They didn't just steal my vineyard. They turned my love into their weapon, every dollar I spent making them richer while they planned to throw me away. $400,000. My entire inheritance from Papa, plus my life savings, plus the equity loan I'd taken against my apartment. All of it poured into these walls, these gardens, these dreams. And they'd timed it perfectly. The wedding would provide the perfect distraction. By the time the guests went home and I found the papers, the sale would be complete. Meridian Development would own the property, and I'd be trespassing on my own land. The caretaker designation was particularly cruel. In their version of events, I'd never owned anything. I was just the hired help who'd gotten above her station. The phone rang exactly 12 minutes later. I know because I was staring at the antique clock on the mantel, watching the seconds tick by while my world crumbled. Anja, Radislav's voice was grim. I've reviewed the documents. This is sophisticated fraud, but proving it won't be simple. What do you mean, won't be simple? That's not my signature. The forgery is professional grade. They've replicated your signature perfectly. They must have had access to multiple samples. Even with clear evidence of fraud, you're looking at 3 years minimum in litigation and legal fees that could exceed $200,000. $200,000. Money I didn't have to fight for property that was already sold. There's more, Radislav continued. They've filed preliminary paperwork claiming you have a history of mental health issues that affect your judgment. If we challenge this, they'll argue you're not competent to manage the property anyway. Mental health issues. Because a woman who spent her inheritance on her family's legacy must be crazy, right? Can we get an injunction, stop the sale? Not without posting a bond equal to the property value. Anja, they've covered every angle. This isn't a spur-of-the-moment scheme. They've been planning this for a very long time. 2.5 hours before the ceremony, Victor the caterer knocked on the study door. Miss Petrova, I'm sorry to bother you, but there's an issue with the final payment. The Vineyard account was frozen. Pending ownership verification, according to the bank representative who called while Victor waited in the hallway. They'd moved fast, faster than I'd thought possible. I paid Victor from my personal account, watching my emergency fund disappear with a few taps on my phone. At least the wedding would go smoothly. At least Elena would have her perfect day before my world ended. Through the study window, I watched 3 men in expensive suits walking the property lines with surveying equipment. One of them pointed at my rose garden and made a bulldozer motion with his hands. They were already planning the demolition. I called the bank, desperate to understand how they'd moved so quickly. The account holder, Mr. Dmitry Petrov, requested the freeze yesterday, the representative explained. As the primary account holder, he has that authority. Primary account holder. Another lie I'd believed. I'd thought it was our joint account for Vineyard expenses. Instead, I'd been depositing my money into Dimitri's personal account for 4 years. Every renovation check, every contractor payment, every dollar I'd spent bringing this place back to life had legally belonged to him from the moment I transferred it. Now, sitting in the front row as the efficient calls for the family blessing, I feel the weight of grandfather Stoyan's papers in my purse. The real papers, the ones from the safe that Dimitri doesn't know I found. At this time, the officiant announces, we'd like to invite Anja Petrova, aunt of the groom, to offer a family blessing. Dimitri's smile widens. He thinks this is part of his plan, the gracious aunt giving her blessing before she's quietly shuffled off the property. In his mind, I'm already defeated. Mikkel beams at me from the altar, probably thinking about the $2.8 million that will fund his new life. Elena smiles expectantly, still believing this family loves her. I stand slowly, the legal documents from this morning in one hand, grandfather's papers in the other. The wedding guests turn to face me, their faces bright with anticipation. Dimitri catches my eye and gives me that patronizing smile that says, "You're beaten and you know it." He has no idea what grandfather Stoyan tucked into his will. The microphone waits for me at the front of the ceremony space. Behind the altar, the valley stretches out in perfect afternoon light, every vine and stone path exactly as I dreamed it would be. Time to show them what family loyalty really means. 2 hours before the ceremony, I'm still in the study staring at the forged documents when Elena appears in the doorway, practically glowing in her silk robe with her bridal bouquet clutched against her chest. Her face is radiant with that special light that only brides have on their wedding day. "Anja, there you are," she says, practically bouncing on her toes. "I've been looking everywhere for you. I wanted to ask about the ceremony music. Should we start with the string quartet or the traditional folk song you suggested?" I quickly slide the legal papers under a stack of wedding programs, forcing my face into what I hope resembles a smile. "The folk song," I manage. "Your grandmother would have loved that." Elena steps closer, her eyes bright with unshed happy tears. "I can't imagine this day without you. Thank you for building this paradise for us. Mikkel says you're the reason this place feels like home." She reaches out and squeezes my hand. "He told me that when he was little, you used to tell him stories about how beautiful this place would be someday. And look, you made it all come true." The bouquet in her arms is made of white roses from my garden, baby's breath I cultivated in the greenhouse, and trailing ivy from the arbor I spent 2 summers training. Every bloom represents hours of my labor, my dreams. I want to warn her. I want to tell her what kind of man she's marrying, what kind of family she's joining. But looking at her face, so trusting, so full of joy, I can't destroy her perfect day with my nightmare. "It's beautiful, Elena," I whisper, my throat tight. "You deserve every happiness." She hugs me then, careful not to crush the flowers, and I breathe in the scent of the roses that will soon belong to strangers. 1 hour and 45 minutes before the ceremony, I'm arranging the final place cards when Georgi, our loud-mouthed cousin, corners me by the gift table. His face is flushed with wine and excitement, and he's gesturing wildly with a champagne flute. "Anja, congratulations on the sale," he booms, loud enough for half the arriving guests to hear. "Such wonderful news. Dimitri told me you're finally ready to retire and let the family handle the business side. Smart woman." My blood turns to ice. What did he tell you exactly? About selling to those development people. He's been telling everyone, the caterers, the musicians, even the photographer. Says you've decided you're too old to manage such a big property anymore. Georgi leans in conspiratorially, his breath reeking of alcohol. "Between you and me, it's about time. Property management is a young man's game, eh?" Around us, I can feel eyes turning our way. Mrs. Kovach from the village gives me a pitying look. The photographer stops adjusting his equipment to stare. Even the string quartet seems to be listening. Dimitri says the new owners will keep the vineyard running, so it's perfect for everyone, Georgi continues, oblivious to my horror. "You get to retire with a nice nest egg, and the family business stays in good hands." The family business. As if Dimitri has ever worked a single day in these fields, as if he's ever pruned a vine or repaired a stone wall or spent sleepless nights worrying about frost damage. "Excuse me," I whisper, pushing past him toward the house. Behind me, I hear him telling someone else about my wise decision to step back from the business side of things. My shame is already public, already spreading through the wedding guests like poison. 1 hour and 30 minutes before the ceremony, I'm hiding in the kitchen when Mikkel finds me. He's wearing his tuxedo now, looking handsome and confident, every inch the successful groom. For a moment, he looks so much like Papa did in old photographs that my heart aches. "Aunt Anja, there you are," he says warmly. "I have a special request. For the toast after the ceremony, could you please get the 2018 vintage from the cellar, the one that you and grandfather made together?" The 2018 vintage. The last wine Papa and I bottled before he died, working side by side in the old cellar while he told me stories about his father's techniques. We'd laughed together as we corked each bottle, Papa saying this batch would be our masterpiece. "I want to toast our new beginning with something that represents our family's legacy," Mikkel continues, his hand on my shoulder. "Something that connects the past to the future. Our family's legacy. The wine Papa and I made with our own hands, the last project we completed together before cancer took him, and they want to use it to toast their theft." "Of course," I hear myself saying, "Papa would have wanted that." Mikkel beams and kisses my cheek. "You're the best, Aunt Anja. This day wouldn't be the same without you." As he walks away, I realize the cruelty is intentional. They're not just stealing my property, they're desecrating every precious memory associated with it. The wine Papa and I made will toast their betrayal. The roses we planted will frame their lies. The house we restored will witness my humiliation. They want me to participate in my own destruction. 1 hour and 15 minutes before the ceremony, I'm coming back from the cellar with Papa's wine when I hear voices in the hallway. Petra, Dimitri's daughter, is talking to a group of relatives I don't recognize, probably Elena's family. Papa says Aunt Anja has been struggling with the business side of things. Petra is saying in that fake concerned voice she's perfected. It's probably for the best that he's taking over. She's getting older, you know. I freeze behind the corner, the wine bottles heavy in my arms. "She's been making some questionable financial decisions lately," Petra continues. "Papa tried to help, but she can be so stubborn about accepting guidance. This sale will give her security without all the stress of property management." One of Elena's relatives murmurs something sympathetic about the burden of aging and family stepping up to help. "Exactly," Petra agrees. "Papa says she's been difficult about money lately, getting confused about expenses and responsibilities. It's sad, really, but this way she can enjoy her retirement without worrying about business decisions." Difficult about money, confused about responsibilities. They're not just stealing my property, they're destroying my reputation, making me sound like a senile old woman who can't manage her own affairs. I stand there in the hallway, holding the wine Papa and I made together, listening to my own niece convince strangers that I'm incompetent. The systematic nature of their betrayal takes my breath away. They've thought of everything, covered every angle, poisoned every relationship. By the time this day is over, no one will believe my version of events. I'll be the confused old aunt who lost touch with reality, and they'll be the patient family members who saved me from my own poor judgment. 1 hour before the ceremony, I'm arranging the wine for the toast when Dimitri and Mikkel corner me in the pantry. Through the window, I can see 3 men in expensive suits watching from the terrace, the corporate buyers, no doubt enjoying the show. "Anja," Dimitri says, his voice low and menacing, "we need to talk." He pulls out a document I haven't seen before, a surrender agreement transferring all my claims to the property directly to him. The signature line waits for my name. "Sign this now before the ceremony," he demands. "Make this easy on everyone." "I'm not signing anything," I say, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. Dimitri's mask slips completely. "You owe us for letting you live here all these years. Do you think we couldn't see what you were doing? Spending money like water, playing lady of the manor with our inheritance." "Your inheritance," the words come out as a whisper. "This property belongs to the Petrov men," Mikkel says, speaking for the first time. He looks guilty but compliant, standing beside his father like a trained dog. You were just the caretaker, Anja. You got confused about your role. Dmitri steps closer, and I can smell his expensive cologne mixed with champagne. You've been living off family charity for 4 years, spending money that wasn't yours, making decisions above your station. Did you really think we'd let you steal our children's inheritance forever? I invested my own money. You invested in our property, Dmitri cuts me off. Every dollar you spent increased our asset value. We should thank you for the free labor. The corporate buyers are laughing about something on the terrace. One of them points at my rose garden and makes a sweeping gesture, probably planning where to put the parking lot. Sign the paper, Anja, Dmitri says. You owe us for letting you live here all these years. Do not ruin my son's big wedding day. Looking at them standing there, father and son, united in their greed, I finally understand. This was never about the money. This was about putting me in my place, reminding me that I'm just a woman, just a caretaker, just someone who forgot her position in the family hierarchy. But they've made one crucial mistake. They think they know all of Grandfather Stoyan's secrets. 45 minutes before the ceremony, I'm alone in the study, watching through the window as the corporate buyers circle my property like vultures. The tall one in the gray suit kicks at my prized lavender border and says something that makes Dmitri laugh, probably about how fast they can rip it all out for the parking lot. They're measuring the fountain area now, the one I spent 3 months restoring stone by stone. The shorter man takes photos of the chapel from multiple angles, no doubt calculating demolition costs. My phone buzzes with a text from Radislav. Reviewed everything again. I'm sorry, Anja. Without posting a $2.8 million bond, there's no legal remedy that won't take years. The forgery is too sophisticated to challenge quickly. Through the window, I watch Dmitri shake hands with the lead buyer. Money doesn't change hands. That will happen after the ceremony, once the guests are gone and the deed is officially transferred. They planned this perfectly. Use my love against me, let me spend my life savings improving their asset, then discard me like garbage while the whole family watches. Make it public enough that I can't fight back without destroying Mikkel's wedding, but private enough that they control the narrative. The tall buyer points at the house now, probably discussing which walls to knock down first. The restoration work that took me 4 years will be undone in 4 days. But as I sit here watching them plan my destruction, my fingers find the edge of Grandfather Stoyan's real papers in my purse. The ones from the safe that Dmitri doesn't know exists. The ones that change everything. They think they've won. They think they've thought of every angle, covered every contingency. They have no idea what's waiting for them at that altar. 30 minutes before the ceremony, I sit in the study staring at the 2 paths that will destroy me. The forged documents spread across the desk mock me with their perfect signatures, their legal language that turns my life's work into theft. Fight and lose everything to the bank, or surrender and lose everything to Dmitri. Either way, I'm destroyed, and Elena's perfect day becomes collateral damage in a war she never knew was happening. Through the window, I watch Elena directing the final ceremony preparations, her face glowing with joy as she adjusts the white silk ribbons on the chairs I refinished by hand. She points to something in my rose garden, probably telling someone how I taught her the names of every variety, how we spent hours together planning the perfect backdrop for this moment. My phone buzzes again. Another text from Radislav. Final review complete. Even if we prove fraud, Dmitri's countersuit for mismanagement of family assets could leave you liable for damages. He's documented every expense you've made as unauthorized use of family funds. Anja, they could take everything, your apartment, your savings, your pension. Everything, not just the vineyard, but my entire life. They've been planning this for years, documenting my unauthorized improvements, building a case that I'm a thief who stole from the family while pretending to help. The corporate buyers are setting up a table on the terrace now, probably for the signing ceremony they've planned for after the wedding. One of them tests a pen on a legal pad, then nods to Dmitri with satisfaction. I close my eyes and see Papa's face the day we planted the first new vines together. This land remembers everything, little bird, he'd whispered. Every generation that loved it, every hand that worked it. the land remembers, even when people forget. But what good are memories when the land is about to be paved over for a shopping center? 20 minutes before the ceremony, I retreat deeper into the study, my hands shaking as I approach Grandfather Stoyan's iron safe built into the wall. The carved initials, SB for Stoyan Petrov, seem to watch me as I spin the combination Papa taught me years ago. Inside, beneath the vintage jewelry and old photographs, my fingers find the leather portfolio I've never fully examined. Papa always said it contained boring legal papers, but something about Dmitri's confidence makes me pull it out now. The original will. Grandfather Stoyan's actual will, not the simplified version the family has always referenced. My hands tremble as I unfold pages that haven't seen light in decades. And there it is, Section VII, the legacy clause. Should any direct descendant attempt to sell, transfer, or otherwise dispose of the Petrova family vineyard through fraudulent means, including but not limited to forged signatures, coercion, or misrepresentation of ownership, said descendant shall immediately and irrevocably forfeit all claims to the Petrova estate and its assets. I read it again, then again, the words don't change. Furthermore, any descendant attempting fraudulent sale automatically forfeits their entire inheritance and claim to the Petrova estate. In such cases, the property shall pass immediately to the National Trust for Historic Preservation, as designated by the surviving loyal descendant. Grandfather didn't just protect the vineyard from sale. Any descendant attempting fraudulent sale automatically forfeits their entire inheritance and claim to the Petrova estate. The hunters just became the hunted. My hands stop shaking. For the first time in hours, I can breathe clearly. Dmitri thinks he holds all the cards, but Grandfather Stoyan dealt me the ace 4 decades ago. The transformation hits me like lightning. I'm not the victim in this story. I'm the guardian of something bigger than all of us. Papa knew. That's why he taught me the combination, why he made sure I understood every stone and vine on this property. I was never the caretaker. I was the protector, trained for exactly this moment. 15 minutes before the ceremony, I pick up my phone with steady hands and dial Radislav's number. When he answers, my voice is calm, decisive, the voice of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. Radislav, I'm invoking the legacy clause, and I need you to prepare an immediate transfer of the property to the National Trust. Get Catherine Morrison and her team ready. I'm about to invoke the legacy clause and transfer everything to the trust. Anja, what are you talking about? What legacy clause? Check your email. I'm sending you photos of Grandfather Stoyan's complete will right now. Section VII nullifies everything Dmitri has done and gives me the authority to transfer the property to prevent fraudulent sale. As I photograph each page, my movements are precise, methodical. No more shaking hands, no more racing heart. This is what Papa trained me for without either of us knowing it. All those hours learning the legal history of the property, understanding every boundary and restriction. My God, Radislav breathes as the photos come through. Anja, this changes everything. If you invoke this clause during a fraudulent sale attempt, Dmitri loses all claims immediately. But are you certain you want to give up ownership entirely? Through the window, I watch Dmitri laughing with the corporate buyers, probably sharing jokes about the crazy old woman they're about to dispose of. Mikkel stands beside them, nodding along like an obedient dog. Get Catherine Morrison and her team ready, I repeat. I'm about to invoke the legacy clause and transfer everything to the trust. They wanted to steal my family's legacy? Fine, now no one can ever touch it again. The paperwork will take. Have it ready in 10 minutes. I'm making the announcement during the family blessing. I hang up and look around the study one last time as its owner. In 15 minutes, this will all belong to the National Trust, preserved forever as Papa dreamed. Dmitri will have nothing. Mikkel will have nothing. And I'll have the satisfaction of watching their faces when they realize that their perfect crime just became their perfect destruction. All pieces falling into place as I transform from victim to protector. Time to show them what family loyalty really means. 2 minutes before the ceremony begins, I slip the legacy clause document into my wedding program and take my seat directly across from the corporate buyers. My phone buzzes with Radislav's text. Trust paperwork ready. Catherine Morrison standing by. Execute when ready. I text back, it's time, execute the plan. The corporate buyers lean forward in their seats, probably eager to witness what they think will be my final humiliation. The tall one in the gray suit checks his watch and nods to his partner. They're ready for their post-ceremony signing. Dmitri catches my eye from his position beside the altar and gives me that patronizing smile, the one that says I'm already beaten. Mikhail adjusts his tie nervously, probably thinking about the $2.8 million that will fund his new life. But as I sit here holding grandfather Stoyan's legacy clause, I feel a cold satisfaction settling over me. The corporate buyers think they're here to witness a wedding. They have no idea they're about to become witnesses to their own destruction. My fingers trace the edge of grandfather's sapphire pin on my lapel. Papa always said it brought the family luck. Today, it's going to bring the family justice. The wedding march begins to play, and I watch Elena start her walk down the aisle, radiant in her grandmother's pearls. For a moment, I feel sorry for her. She has no idea her perfect day is about to become the stage for the Petrov family's reckoning. But some truths are too important to hide, even on wedding days. The string quartet's music drifts across the vineyard as Elena glides down the aisle, her silk train catching the afternoon light. Every guest turns to watch her approach the altar, their faces bright with joy and anticipation. Father Martinez takes his position at the podium, his weathered hands holding the ceremony notes I helped him prepare weeks ago. He looks out over the assembled crowd, family members who have traveled from across the country, Elena's relatives from Vienna, neighbors from the village who have watched this property transform under my care. Dearly beloved, Father Martinez begins, his voice carrying easily across the restored stone terrace. We gather today not just to witness a union, but to celebrate the bonds of family that have brought us to this sacred place, built by generations of love and sacrifice. Generations of love and sacrifice. The irony isn't lost on me as I watch Dmitri beam with pride, probably thinking about how his sacrifice of stealing from his sister has finally paid off. Behind the altar, the valley stretches out in perfect afternoon light. Every vine, every stone path, every carefully restored detail represents a piece of my soul that they tried to sell. The white roses I planted frame the ceremony beautifully, their blooms opening to the sun like prayers made visible. The Petrova family vineyard has been blessed by many generations, Father Martinez continues, each one adding their own love to this sacred ground. Today, we honor that legacy as we witness Mikhail and Elena begin their own chapter in this continuing story. The corporate buyers shift in their seats, probably calculating demolition timelines. The shorter one takes discreet photos of the chapel architecture, no doubt for the destruction crew. But they're documenting their own crime scene. Every photo they take will become evidence of their attempted theft of protected historical property. At this time, Father Martinez announces, consulting his ceremony notes, we invite Anja Petrova, beloved aunt of the groom, to offer a family blessing. The moment I've been waiting for. I stand slowly, feeling every eye in the vineyard turn toward me. The wedding guests smile expectantly. They think they're about to hear a touching tribute to family love and tradition. Dmitri's smirk widens as I walk toward the microphone. He thinks this is part of his plan, the gracious aunt giving her blessing before being quietly shuffled off the property. In his mind, I'm already defeated, already broken. The corporate buyers lean forward with anticipation, probably expecting to hear me publicly thank them for their generosity in purchasing the property. The tall one actually has his phone out, ready to record what he thinks will be my surrender speech. Mikhail beams at me from the altar, his face bright with what he probably thinks is affection. Elena smiles warmly, still believing she's marrying into a family of honor and integrity. As I reach the microphone, I catch Dmitri whispering to the lead buyer, "Watch this. She's about to publicly thank us for our generosity," makes the whole transfer cleaner. The microphone waits for me, its black surface reflecting the afternoon sun. Behind me, I can feel the weight of expectation from 200 wedding guests. In front of me, the villains of this story wait for their moment of triumph. Time to give them exactly what they deserve. I adjust the microphone and look out over the assembled crowd, my voice carrying clearly across the vineyard when I speak. Thank you, Father Martinez. I do indeed have a blessing to share with my family today. I pause, letting my eyes find Dmitri's face. I want to speak about my grandfather, Stoyan Petrov, and the wisdom he built into this land. Dmitri nods approvingly, probably thinking I'm about to deliver some sentimental speech about family traditions. The corporate buyers settle back in their chairs, ready to be bored by old country nostalgia. Grandfather Stoyan understood that some people see family as a source of love and support. I continue, my voice growing stronger. But he also knew that others see family as something to exploit, something to steal from when they think no one is watching. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Dmitri's smile falters slightly, but he's not worried yet. Mikkel shifts uncomfortably at the altar. I reach into my purse and pull out the leather portfolio, holding it high enough for everyone to see. That's why grandfather included a very special provision in his will, something he called the legacy clause. Now Dmitri looks concerned. The corporate buyers exchange glances, suddenly paying attention. The legacy clause states that any descendant who attempts to sell this property through fraud, forgery, or theft automatically forfeits all claims to the Petrova estate. I open the portfolio and pull out the original document. My brother and nephew demanded I sign away my vineyard home at this very altar. Instead, I give my family blessing. Grandfather Stoyan's legacy clause voids any fraudulent sale and strips the perpetrators of all inheritance rights. The silence that follows is deafening. Then Dmitri shoots to his feet, his face purple with rage. "She's lying," he shouts, pointing at me with a shaking finger. "There's no such clause, she's having another one of her episodes." But the corporate buyers are already on their phones, frantically calling their legal teams. The tall one is shouting something about due diligence failures. Chaos erupts across the vineyard as my words sink in. Dmitri pushes through the seated guests, trying to reach me at the microphone, his face twisted with fury and desperation. "She's lying," he screams again, but his voice cracks with panic. "There's no legacy clause, we checked everything." Mikkel stares at me from the altar in horror, his perfect wedding day crumbling around him. Elena backs away from him, confusion and dawning realization crossing her face as she begins to understand what she's witnessed. Marcus Webb, the lead corporate buyer, is shouting into his phone, "What do you mean there's a legacy clause? We paid you $500,000 for due diligence. How did you miss a goddamn legacy clause?" His partner frantically shuffles through a briefcase full of documents, probably looking for the original will they never bothered to examine. The third buyer is already heading for the parking area, clearly wanting no part of whatever legal disaster is about to unfold. "This is fraud," Dmitri shouts, finally reaching the front of the ceremony area. "She forged those documents. She's been planning this for months." But Father Martinez steps between us, his elderly frame somehow commanding in its quiet dignity. "Brother, perhaps this is not the time or place for such accusations." The wedding guests are murmuring among themselves now, phones appearing as people start recording the unfolding drama. Mrs. Kovac from the village looks shocked, probably remembering all the times Dmitri bragged about managing the family business. Petra tries to approach the microphone, probably to spin some story about my mental health, but I'm not finished yet. The truth has momentum now, and nothing can stop it. I raise my hand for silence, and somehow the crowd settles enough for me to continue. The microphone picks up my voice clearly as I deliver the final blow. "But wait," I say, my voice carrying across the stunned vineyard. "There's more to my family blessing." Dmitri freezes, his face going white. Even the corporate buyers stop their frantic phone calls to listen. The legacy clause doesn't just void fraudulent sales, it requires the loyal descendant to immediately transfer the property to the National Trust for Historic Preservation, ensuring it can never be exploited again. I pull out my phone and show the screen to the crowd, which is exactly what I've just done. The silence is absolute, even the birds seem to have stopped singing. My wedding gift to Mikkel and Elena is the truth. This vineyard will remain a place of beauty forever, protected from those who see only dollar signs where others see sacred ground. Marcus Webb's face goes purple as he realizes what this means. You can't do this. We have contracts. We have purchase agreements. You have contracts with someone who never owned the property, I reply calmly. Dmitry forged my signature on documents transferring property that belonged to me. Those contracts are worthless. Dmitry makes one last desperate attempt. She's senile. She doesn't understand what she's doing. I'm the head of this family. But Elena has heard enough. She walks slowly down from the altar, her wedding dress rustling against the stone steps. When she reaches Mikkel, she looks directly into his eyes and slowly removes her engagement ring. I thought I was marrying into a family of honor, she says, her voice carrying clearly in the stunned silence. Instead, I almost married a thief. She drops the ring at his feet and walks away, her head held high, her grandmother's pearls catching the afternoon light. The wedding dissolves into chaos as the full implications of my announcement sink in. The corporate buyers are packing their briefcases with desperate efficiency, probably hoping to escape before the legal consequences catch up with them. Dmitry slumps into a chair, his face gray with shock as he realizes he's lost everything: the vineyard, the $2.8 million sale, and now his entire inheritance thanks to grandfather's legacy clause. Mikkel stands alone at the altar, abandoned by his bride and facing complete financial ruin. Wedding guests mill around uncertainly, some heading for their cars while others cluster in small groups, whispering about what they've just witnessed. The photographer has stopped taking pictures, probably realizing this isn't the kind of wedding album anyone wants to remember. Mrs. Kovac approaches me as I step away from the microphone. Anja, she says quietly, your grandfather would be proud. He always said this land needed a guardian, not an owner. Through the crowd, I see Catherine Morrison from the National Trust approaching with her team, their "Protected Forever" signs already being unloaded from their van. They work with quiet efficiency, marking the boundaries of what is now permanently protected historical property. Radislav appears at my elbow, slightly out of breath from rushing here. It's done, he says quietly. The transfer is complete and legally binding. The trust has full ownership, and the property can never be sold or developed. I touch Grandfather Stoyan's pin on my lapel and feel a deep sense of peace settle over me. The afternoon light slants across the vineyard exactly as Papa always said it would, painting everything in gold and promise. The roots are safe, the blight has been pruned away, the legacy continues. As the trust's "Protected Forever" signs go up around the vineyard perimeter, I walk slowly through the gardens Papa and I plan together. The corporate buyers have fled, their expensive suits disappearing into black cars that speed away down the valley road. Dmitry sits alone on a stone bench, staring at the ground where his dreams of easy money have crumbled to dust. Mikkel has disappeared entirely, probably trying to figure out how to explain to his creditors that his inheritance just evaporated. The wedding guests are mostly gone now, but a few neighbors from the village remain, helping to clean up the scattered chairs and abandoned decorations. They work quietly, respectfully, understanding that they've witnessed something significant. Elena appears beside me as I deadhead the roses that framed this morning's ceremony. She's changed out of her wedding dress into simple clothes, but she still wears her grandmother's pearls. Thank you, she says simply. I know this wasn't easy for you. You deserve to know the truth before you bound your life to his, I reply, my fingers gentle on the rose petals. Your grandmother's pearls should grace a marriage built on honesty. She nods and walks away, her dignity intact despite everything. She'll be fine, stronger for having learned this lesson before it was too late. As the sun begins to set over the valley, I sit on the stone steps Papa and I rebuilt together and watch the trust team finish their work. Tomorrow, historians will come to document the property. Next week, the first preservation students will arrive to learn traditional vineyard techniques. The land will live forever now, protected from those who would destroy it for profit. Generations of children will learn about winemaking and heritage and the importance of preserving beautiful things. I touch Grandfather's pin one final time and feel his presence in the evening breeze. As the trust's "Protected Forever" signs catch the last light of day, I know with absolute certainty. The roots are safe, the blight has been pruned, And sometimes the best way to win is to make sure nobody can ever lose what matters most. The Vineyard will remember this day, not as the scene of a failed wedding, but as the moment it became truly free.
Anja, your courage in invoking that legacy clause shows us that true family bonds aren't about blood, but about honoring shared dreams against greed. It reminds us all how one hidden truth can preserve what matters most. What would you have done at that altar? Comment below, and if stories like this move you, like and subscribe for more. I'm Eliza Quinn, and remember, here on Wedding Day Justice, veils off, justice on.